All right, Corey, I want to say thank you for coming back. Like I said in our previous visit, we are going to take a look at your family. I'm going to do what's called a genogram. We are going to go through your family and kind of lay out what brought you to us through talking about your family and your interaction with your family and seeing if we can see a pattern and maybe a outline of what brings you to me today. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So I have a legal pad here that I'm going to be taking some notes on so I can draw out your family at the end. I'm going to show it to you and see what we can piece together. Okay?
Sounds good.
What was your mother's name?
Is it Felicia?
Alicia. Okay. And how was your relationship with her?
I met her once when I was like a toddler in elementary school. I barely remember her.
All right. You didn't have much of a relationship with her?
Not really, no.
Who was she married to?
Tom,
How many kids did they have?
5.
How was your relationship with Tom?
Barely knew him either. I mean, I saw him as much as I saw her.
Tell me about your aunts and uncles.
They're all still alive. Do you want to know like the geographic area, like where the demographic, like where they live or anything, the background, or just kind of my relationship with them?
Yeah, let's start with the oldest.
The oldest is
What's their name?
my mother,
What's her name?
Cammy.
Okay. And where is she living at right now?
North Carolina.
How's your relationship with her?
It's pretty good.
Did you grow up in North Carolina?
Yeah,
Okay. So your mom stays there. What does she do?
she's a nurse.
Like yourself. How was her relationship with your grandparents?
Not very good.
Okay. How would you describe it?
They don't really speak to each other anymore.
Are both of your grandparents still alive? Felicia and Tom?
I am pretty sure Tom is, and I think he was divorced from Felicia. I don't really know where they ended up. Honestly, I, my mom's sisters, they live in up the New England, Northeast, whatever. They don't really talk to them as much either. Just kind of like around holidays or send cards and stuff. And we had a good relationship with them growing up, but they still visit with Tom and his current wife or whatever. I really don't know much about them.
Okay. So who's the second oldest?
That would be my uncle Gary or Brian. I think Gary's older.
All right. How's your relationship with him?
Growing up, we saw them a lot. You know, we'd go visit family up north, but I don't really keep in touch with them as adults. But you know, I'm sure if I call them up, they'd probably be happy to talk to me on the phone or something.
Does he still live in North Carolina as far as you know?
He is in like New Jersey or Pennsylvania or somewhere up north, maybe New York. I'm not sure.
Do you know if he's in a relationship?
I'm not certain. The wife he was married to, my mom actually still keeps in touch with, and her son, my cousin Mark, who I like talk to on Facebook, but I don't really keep up with them as well either. So.
All right. And then you said Kevin was the next in line to be the oldest.
Gary, Brian.
Brian.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me a little bit about Brian.
Brian, he's a mechanic. He and his wife are still together. They have a daughter. She's growing up off to college and stuff. My mom gets a hold of him every now and then. I don't really, again, we weren't like really close growing up, so I would see them around holidays and stuff, but I haven't really kept in touch as an adult.
Let's see. All right, so that's Brian. Is he still in North Carolina as far as you know?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah. None of my mom's siblings live in North Carolina.
Who's the next in line?
That'd be her second youngest sister, Donna.
Okay. How's your relationship with Donna?
Pretty good. Like I haven't seen them in a couple of years, but we, probably the family we grew up with, the most, they had kids that were close in age to my brother and me. So we would always go visit them, and they would come stay with us sometimes in Ohio and North Carolina. And we write like Christmas and birthday cards and stuff. So we just kind of keep in touch in the mail and on Facebook and stuff.
Is she still in Ohio?
She's in New Jersey.
Do you know what she does?
She worked in a school for a while. She was like an executive assistant or something like that. I'm not really sure.
And who is the baby?
That would be my Aunt Leanne.
Tell me about Miss Leanne.
She is, I think, in Delaware. Like back in New Jersey. She kind of moved around. She lived in Puerto Rico for a while, kind of all over the place. I don't really know what she does for work. She's had a number of jobs over the years. She's an alcoholic, and she kind of goes from job to job, and she's had kind of a tough go of it with life.
So when you say alcoholic, was she diagnosed, or is that like
I don't know what kind of treatment she's gotten, but all I know is my mom always referred to her as having a lot of problems with alcoholism. She probably it runs in the family. So her father, Tom Posey, he was an alcoholic. He grew up. They all grew up in this household with him. Drunk as soon as he get off of work, go to the bar, come home drunk, all that. So. I think a lot of the kids in the relationship dealt with some of that too.
Do you know if anybody else in your family struggled with alcohol abuse?
Definitely not my mom. My mom barely drinks at all. And then Donna doesn't drink, maybe socially, but the brothers, maybe Gary, because he and his wife split. They might have had some problems with, I don't really know. But
That's all right. You're doing great. Great. We're diving in deep, so it's good. So let's talk about any cousins that you're very close to, that you still keep in contact with, that you've formed a strong bond throughout the years with.
The only ones that really, growing up, we were pretty close, but really not in recent years. Like I said, we kind of keep in touch with, like on Facebook and stuff, but haven't seen them in person in several years. But my Aunt Donna, her kids were close in age to my brother and me, so we see their baby pictures and married, wedding pictures and stuff on. I went to some of their weddings, but a few years back. But
keep in touch on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any people on your mom's side that have been to jail that you know of?
Not that I know of. No.
Do you know any of the mental health history besides the alcoholism that we talked about?
Not really.
Does anyone on this side of the family have any kind of hostility or animosity toward anybody else or you?
I would say my mom and some of her sisters had kind of rocky relationships at points. They had a period of not speaking to each other for some months or maybe a year longer, because they argued about I guess some things that they grew up with their mother and father, and their younger sister and her alcoholism and how she should be dealt with, and how they should help her or not, and they disagreed on a number of things, but never anything directed at me.
How's your relationship with, or how is your mom's relationship with Leanne and Donna now?
Pretty good. They still talk on the phone, and I think my mom, when she goes up there to visit them a couple times a year, she sees them a few times a year.
Do you know when they had some animosity toward each other? Like what year, or how old you were?
Maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago, something like that.
Okay. Back in like
2015, 14, like that maybe.
And then they made up a year later?
Yeah.
Very good. We're going to put right here. Tell me about your father's mother.
Her name?
Mm-hmm.
Helen.
How's your relationship with Helen?
She's deceased for about 5, probably more than that actually, maybe like 8 or 9 years now. But growing up, we lived a few hours away from them. We would go visit them, and she came and stayed with us sometimes when we were little. My parents went on vacation. But yeah, she was a sweet grandmother. We didn't get to know her really well. She was quite old. She was in her 90s when she passed, and growing up, she was, I think, in her 80s when we were little kids. But she was kind of like a straightforward, plain and simple woman, I guess. Kind of. She would let us play and do our thing, and she would read or knit or whatever. So we didn't socialize with her a whole lot, to be honest. But she was a sweet, nice grandmother.
But she was there for you when you were kids.
Mm-hmm.
You said you would describe her as a loving grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Who was she married to?
Frank. Well, his real first name is Forrest, but everybody called him Frank or Whitey. His hair was stark white from the time he was in his teens to death.
Goodness.
Yeah.
What did Forrest do?
He was a supervisor for a road crew, laying pavement and blacktop in northern Ohio.
Did he help watch after you when you were kids with his wife?
He didn't really watch after us. I'd say, Helen looked after us more so when we were up there visiting or whatever. But he would play with us, take us out. His passion was gardening after he retired, so he would take us out in his tractor and take us around the farm and stuff.
Is he still with us?
No, he has been deceased for at least 15 years.
How would you describe your relationship with him?
It was a good relationship. It was friendly, loving.
How many kids did they have?
They had, together, Helen and Frank had 6 kids. She had 2 other sons from a previous marriage where she was widowed during World War II. But the kids all grew up together, all 8 of them.
Did you know the man from the previous marriage?
No, I'm not even sure of his name. I'm actually going to think of it, but yeah, he died in the war. So, yeah.
So, like we did with your mom's family, I want to go through your dad's family from oldest to youngest.
Okay.
Are you able to do that?
I think I can. Yeah.
We're doing the best you can. Let's start with the oldest.
I want to say Thais. Thais.
Okay. And how's your relationship with them?
That's good.
What do they do?
She's a nurse, actually. She's a parish nurse still. She's in her early 80s, late 70s, and still working. Just not really working. I think most of it's volunteer, but she volunteers at her church. Yeah, she was not sure what kind of, she might have done mother baby, but she was a nurse for decades. So,
How was your relationship with her?
yeah, we grew up with um, spending time at their house, and they would come visit us as well. And their kids were a lot older than my brother and me, so they would let us play their video games and we'd go over and visit and stuff. But other than that, yeah, they were they were. She was being a nurse. She was a teacher. She loved to show us things and bring us to museums and stuff. And was yeah. Her husband's an anesthesiologist, so their kids ended up being an emergency doctor and a few other things in medical. But it's going a little further than you need to go, I think.
No, it's all relevant. You have a lot of um, medical providers in your family that I'm seeing, and and it's kind of coming down toward you, and you're passing on the lineage
Yeah,
of being a medical provider.
certainly had an influence on me.
Who was the next oldest?
Probably Diane.
Tell me about Diane.
She was a school teacher. She's also retired for a couple decades now, I guess. She's also in her late 70s. Um, lives in Virginia. She and Thais, they live just down the road from each other. But they we visit them just as often as we visited Thais and Frank. We would go visit, and they would come stay with us, and we had a good relationship growing up with them. Still keep in touch, emails and Facebook and what have you.
Let's move on to the next oldest.
That would be Linda.
What did Linda do?
I want to say she did something in business. I'm honestly not really sure of what her occupation was.
How's your relationship with her?
Good. Good. Yeah, I just saw her this last fall. Living so far away from most of my relatives, none of them live down south here, so I don't really get to see my aunts and uncles very often. So might be once or twice a year, if that.
How was your relationship when you were younger?
We see them more frequently when we lived in the same state. We lived in Ohio, and a lot of them lived in Ohio, Virginia. We'd take a lot of road trips and things.
To the next oldest.
That would probably be Emil, Emil.
What did Emo do?
He was a musician.
Oh, a musician in the family. What did he play?
French horn.
It's a beautiful instrument.
Yeah, he still plays. He doesn't play as much as he did. He played for the DC, whatever the Pops Orchestra is in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How was your relationship with him?
Good. Good. We visit. I saw him a couple of years ago. It's been a while, but he and my dad still stay really good in touch. They were close since they were closer in age.
Does he live in DC?
Yeah, he and his husband live in DC.
And then the next oldest?
Be my dad, Steve.
We'll get to your dad in a little bit, okay?
All right.
Let's go to the next oldest.
Joe.
All right. What did Joe do?
Joe, he worked for a like a mill company, construction in northern Ohio. Um, they worked manufacturing paper products, I guess. I'm not exactly sure.
Like a paper mill?
It's like corrugated materials made from like cardboards and things like that.
Okay. How's your relationship with him growing up and now?
The same as a lot of the aunts and uncles. Visit occasionally, several times a year, and saw him this past summer of 2017.
Okay. What about the next oldest?
So I got this wrong a little bit. I gave you all the siblings who are from Helen and Frank's marriage in that order. And the oldest actual two, would be Jean and Ron from her previous husband.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ron was the older of the two.
Okay.
Jean died before I was born. He died in a car wreck. But Ron lived until I think he passed in the late 90s. Like I said, they're from her former marriage. They were born in, I want to say, maybe the 30s or 40s. They were a lot older than the other siblings.
The relationship with either of those?
Gene, like I said, he was born. He was dead before I was alive, before I was born. But Ron, and Gene's wife, I don't know anything about her or whatever. But or if he was married, honestly. But Ron, he and his wife Phil, yeah, we would visit them as often as the other. When we go visit up Northern Ohio, we'd see them as well, and they would keep in touch. I still keep in touch with my Aunt Phil's.
For the same thing with your mother's family that I asked, is there any animosity in your father's side of the family, or do anybody get along?
They're all really close siblings. They all grew up in the same household for the most part in a little, country town in Northern Ohio, and so they lived pretty, simple life, I guess. But yeah, they're all pretty close and close family. So.
Tell me about Emil for a second. We're going to talk about him for a second. How was your family's reaction to his coming out?
As far as I know, my grandfather just kind of, like, as the family would say in the typical fashion, they just ignored it and, acted like it wasn't really there. But my grandmother, I guess, was closer to him, and she accepted it and treated him no different. But my grandfather, I think, kind of turned his shoulder to him and just said, "Don't bring that around me," or wanted nothing to do with it. But I don't think he completely disowned him, but he didn't really welcome it. But the rest of the siblings have always been fine with it. Whenever I've visited, nobody even has ever talked about it like it was anything differently to talk about.
So, how is your relationship with your father?
Very good.
Tell me a little bit about growing up with him.
He worked 9 to 5 and traveled a good bit when we were much younger, and then he was like great dad who always coached our baseball team and would play with my brother and me after he'd get home from work and helped us with homework, and he's a good dad.
What do you do for a living?
He worked in sales and administration for Procter & Gamble for a number of years.
And is he still with us?
Yes.
Is he still married to your mother?
No.
When did they divorce?
In 2002, officially. They're separated in 2001.
Tell me about that. What was going on?
I was junior year of high school, and they were unhappy for no reason. They would argue and fight a lot, and typical divorce unpleasantries, I guess. And then they separated, lived apart for a while, and everything officially happened by the time I was a senior in high school.
How did you take that?
At the time, I thought I handled it well, but looking back, I could see a number of things I probably did that I wouldn't have done otherwise, I guess. You know,
Yeah. Tell me about some
just
of
acting out dumb high school kid stuff, like drinking with friends and stuff. And I was a pretty good kid up until my junior senior year, and then I think my senior year I was a little more slack, and I was always a straight A student. And then my senior year I got a couple of C's, which I never got in my entire K through 12. You know,
always a straight A student.
yeah. But my senior year, I guess I just didn't really care so much. So
And would you say that you believe that the separation of your parents may have had an effect on that?
looking back, yes. At the time, I didn't really think it affected me, but looking back, for sure.
Tell me about your brothers and sisters.
I have one brother. He's older.
What's his name?
Forrest.
Was he named after your grandfather?
He was.
How's your relationship with him?
Very good.
How are you two growing up?
We were close in age, about a year and a half apart, and so we had a lot of things in common, and typical like little brother, big brother scenarios played out a lot of times. Or I'd want to hang out with him, and he'd tell me to bug off, and a lot of times I did hang out with his friends and stuff too. But I had my own friends, of course. But I think we had a pretty good relationship growing up, all in all.
And how's your relationship today?
Still really good. If anything, better after becoming adults, because we had a period in our teenage years, I guess, when my parents were splitting up, where we kind of took sides. I think, you know, and but after things kind of settled, we've become closer.
So tell me, are you currently married or dating anyone?
Married.
What's their name?
No.
All right. How long have you been married?
For so probably know this, and a year and 20 days.
Very, very accurate. Let's see. How long were you dating?
Over 6 years.
So I'm going to ask a little bit about Matt. Does Matt have any brothers or sisters?
He does.
Where does he fall?
He is the middle. Well, the middle of his three siblings from his mother and father. His father has a daughter from a former marriage.
Mm. How is your family's relationship with Matt?
That's my family's relationship with Matt.
Mhm.
Oh, it's fine. It's good. They're all come to love him, accept him in the family.
They're very supportive of your marriage and relationship.
Yes.
Let's see. Tell me about Matt's siblings. Who's oldest?
Zach. His whatever his from his mother and father, his biological mother and father. Yes, Zach's the oldest, Matt's the middle, and Josh is the youngest.
How far are they apart in years?
Mm, he's closer in age to Josh by like a year or two, and then Zach is about 5 years older.
I have a lot of scribble. Let me go over it just a little bit.
Okay.
Let me ask you on your father's side. I don't think I asked you on your father's side. Are there any? Did anyone go to jail for any period of time that you know of?
was a bit of a kind of he was the youngest and a little bit wild. He might have been picked up for drunken disorderly conduct after some college parties or something, but other than that, I don't think he had any sort of real record.
How does Matt's family feel about you?
They're very loving and accepting. They, call me son when I visit and everything. So they're, like having another mother and father and brothers. So it's pretty cool.
How do you feel about them?
The same.
Would you describe your relationship as loving?
Yes.
All right. So here I want to show you your genogram. Like I said, it's a bunch of scribble, but follow with me. You got your mother's side over here and your father's side over here. These are all my notes that I took about what you said about them, so that I can kind of follow and keep up with who we're talking about and what kind of relationships you had with which family member. Uh, Throughout your genogram, you have a lot of support. It sounds like, even though the distance kind of impedes that a little bit. It sounds like through social media, you're able to keep up with them and have a very good support system. Um, One thing I didn't ask that I would like to add to the genogram is, did your mother or father ever remarry?
Yeah, my father's been married for a couple of years now.
And what's her name?
Liz.
How's your relationship with Liz?
Very good.
When did they get married?
It was summer of 2017.
So recent.
Yes.
Did you attend their wedding?
I did not. They did a kind of quick, not elopement, but they went to the courthouse and just kind of got it done.
Did the formal
They
stuff?
didn't want to do a big ceremony.
And what about your mom?
My mom has been in a relationship with the same man for at least 3 or 4 years now, maybe. They're not married, but they've been dating for several years now, at least 3 years.
How's your relationship? What's his name?
Doug.
How's your relationship with Doug?
That's really good.
Have your step parents seemed to come together cohesively with your family, or do your family approve of the step parents?
Yeah, things seem to work really well on either side.
How are your mom and dad able to get along?
They do. They don't really see each other very often anymore, but when they get together for whatever reason, then yeah, they get along quite well.
So, the reason I wanted to show you this is, like I said, it's kind of a map to show me how you got here as a person and also how you got here to our office. As far as the reason that you're here in our office, maybe in time it'll appear, or if you go home, you may, strike up a moment where you remember that somebody may have mental illness within your family, or maybe somebody acted some sort of way that is similar to how you're feeling now. And that's fine. We can talk about it with your next session. The main point I want to talk about right here is the giant support system that you have. Okay. It looks like you have a lot of family members that you have a loving relationship for and with, that will help you during this time. Okay.
Okay.
An interesting thing is that you also, let me explain it to you like this. a lot of a lot of stress can come from us not creating families that look like the ones that we came from. Um, so your relationship with Matt already doesn't look like the family that you came from with your mom and dad, but you had an uncle that has this homosexual relationship. So that can be a little bit more comforting, especially since the family is very accepting, as you say. Uh, so as we go along in our sessions, I'll be asking more questions about your family members as we go along. We'll be doing a little bit more psychotherapy to see where your improvements can really lie and go from there. Okay.
Sounds good.